My name is Daniel, director, DP, colorist, work in the film industry, also works in commercials, and Canon has been an effective tool that has allowed the democratization of storytelling. And I feel this is the foundation and also the future of Nigerian Nollywood. So the culture and the evolution of Nollywood date back to the days of Gunde. That actually fostered the entire mind of the whole Nollywood spirit, what we would know as the Nollywood industry, which from my perspective was born out of an independent collective consciousness that has actually projected the industry forward, purely driven by commerce. And that led up to the age of the eras where we started seeing films like Naked, The Pretty Sapet, Domitila, Living in Bondage, and these were like pretty good eras, and all these were independent stories that were told through the means available. That stepped up into like the 5 years, and it progressed forward into the C300s. They opened more doors because the barrier to the industry was now lowered. A lot of content creation was now being democratized. During that period, cameras like the C300s, the C300s Mark II, became a very interesting tool because it embodied the philosophy of being efficient, because it's the basics of what Nollywood is building. We try to be efficient using the little means we have to do the most. Canon's cameras became like a solution to turn to. Great color science, embodied great codecs that could manage the size of files, gave them decent resolutions to be able to shoot at 2K 444, at 4K 422, and all of those were found in cameras such as the C300 Mark IIs, the Cinema EOS series, and you could find these even in TV films, whereby the C300 Mark II was deployed as a good broadcast descent tool because it was a broadcast warhorse. And that camera evolved into becoming a concert camera. And of late, we now had the C500 series and the C700 series, because back then all we were used to was 6 stops of dynamic range that we could get from the 70. These were things we leaned on to represent ourselves culturally, to tell our own stories. The only way that it's possible for us to sustain storytelling is becoming effective and efficient. And most of these things are similar ethos you find in the camera bodies I'm referring to. Like the C300 Mark II is a broadcast warhorse that gives you 444 on an interesting resolution. Even the new Mark III now gives us 16 stops of dynamic range that helps us allow to tell stories, that allows us to access deeper stops into the shadows, better skin tones, being able to remap. Because there's several stories I could think of right now that 2-3 years ago, they were not possible to be. The scale at which we tell them now is not the scale that was actually ever possible. Right now we have bigger titles in the industry coming out. We have people who are now looking to do more. We're no longer paying attention just to quantity again. It's now a quality conversations. Things like, how does the frame look? What's the technology that's driving the entire conversation of your own story and creative intent? Technology mixed creativity and now be able to deliver the entire medium that we call film. And all of this becomes an ecosystem. Why we have the C700 that's a studio camera that we could deploy on commercials for the highest end of resolutions. We also have like the C500 or the C200 that could become like a rig camera, or that could become a big camera, depending on even in multicam scenarios whereby we have to like deliver multicam. It just opens up the possibility and makes creation more flexible. And if you ask me what's the future of Nollywood industry, I will tell you that I also see Canon tied in it, because as far as they are embodying the entire ethos of being efficient, of being effective, of delivering things such as dynamic range, such as more better color science, as far as they just keep leaning on the pillars of storytelling, where technology becomes a story assist, a digital assistant to filmmakers such as myself, the sky becomes the stepping stone.
Hello and welcome to the final Canon Vision Live Q&A, which has seen a hand-picked selection of inspiring individuals and experts talking in depth about their experiences in the industry and the exciting launches that took place yesterday, and of course lots of other Canon kit as well, all of which forms part of Canon Vision. And the same goes for the session that we're in right now. So in the absence of IBC, as I'm sure you know, especially if you've been watching the last sessions, Canon's had to think outside the box and take things virtual once again, following the biggest product launch to date with the EOS R5 and R6 back in July. And I think even though it would have been good to do all of this in person, actually network and talk to real people and physically touch things, I think Canon's done a really remarkable job of virtually bringing its product announcements to life. If you've not tuned into any of the other previous sessions and you don't know who I am by now, I'm going to introduce myself again. My name is Lucy Hedges. I'm the technology editor for the Metro newspaper in the UK. I'm also a BBC travel show presenter. And I have been absolutely loving hosting these sessions over the past couple of days. I'm actually a little bit sad this is the final one. So let's just quickly talk about the announcements that we saw yesterday. Canon pulled back the curtain on a really nice selection of new products. So let's just do a quick recap for those of you who need it. So Canon's announced the EOS C70, a digital camera with a body that resembles the body of a mirrorless stills camera. Notably, the C70 uses Canon's RF lens mount, making it the first cinema EOS camera to adopt the company's newest lens system. It's also the most compact and lightweight cinema camera to date, and it is loaded to the hilt with loads of nice new features that are giving it the potential to become one of the best cinema cameras around. I'm talking 4K shooting at 120 FPS with audio recording, dual pixel autofocus with intelligent tracking, 16 stops of dynamic range, a touch interface, and all of that wrapped up in a distinctive design. So Canon's vision ultimately involves transforming the way films and video are made and to ultimately transform the way people work in order to meet the diverse and ever-evolving recording requirements of the industry. Okay, next up, there's the newly announced mount adapter, giving users access to the extensive range of Canon EF mount lenses for even more shooting freedom. And then finally, there's demonstrating Canon's commitment to lens innovation. There's a CJ20 EX5B, which is a high-performance broadcast lens. So what can you expect from this session, our final session? So as a lot of you will already know, Canon's invited a selection of guest speakers and just a brilliant bunch of inspirational and all knowledgeable guests from all different parts of the planet to talk about their experiences in the industry, what projects they're working on, what shoots they've been involved in, and of course, all the Canon kit they've been using to achieve it. So this is such a great opportunity for you guys to be inspired by a fellow filmmaker and just hear some really brilliant stories about people out there on the front line, armed with nothing but their camera and serious amounts of creativity. It's also worth mentioning before we start properly that the sessions will be available to replay later on Canon Vision, on the Canon Vision platform, in case you missed one, or just want to replay them again and again, or get some salient information that you might have missed earlier. And when it comes to social media, you've got to get involved. Make sure you keep an eye out on the Canon Pro social media channels. You can take a look at more content shot with the new products. And of course, there's lots of other cool content for you to sink your teeth into as well. Just head over to Canon EMEA Pro on Facebook and Twitter and get typing. So what's happening in this session? And so I am joined by the lovely Daniel Ehimen, director, DOP, and colorist. He's coming beaming in all the way from Nigeria, who'll be talking to us about Nollywood, the trends and the future, and all the Canon kit that he's been using throughout his career. And also joining us on this session, we've got Paul Atkinson. If you watched any of the sessions yesterday, you would have enjoyed a rather lovely chat I had with him. He's a product specialist at Canon Europe, specializing in professional video cameras, and he can talk to us a bit more about the new kit's technical side and what this means for filmmakers. And before we kick off, I've got to say, it goes without saying that we would love to hear your questions. That's the whole point of this the live Q&A part of the session. So don't be shy, send them in, and we'll try and get as many answered as we can. So on that note, I think we should start, and I should introduce Daniel. Daniel, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Real good.
It's really lovely to have you. So thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's great to actually be in this conversation.
Pardon?
It's great to actually be in the conversation.
Yes. I'm loving that you're our final session. So you're a producer, cinematographer. You've worked for various types of productions. You've done a lot. And you're also working in Nollywood. So can you tell us a bit more about yourself and the work you've been doing to date?
So my background dated back to sound, back then where I was drawn by the AV pool.
I actually studied to become a certified technological specialist for live sound, and somehow I made my way through that because that was not enough. Because my initial impulse into the AV world started with the old film camera that we actually been taking pictures, and somehow that has just kept like an interest going the entire fire burning. And I moved away from the AV world because it was just too difficult to lug around speakers to actually design experience. It was great. It was fantastic when it worked, but come on, it was not just that practical for me. So I moved there into my initial impact, which was like the still camera, and went into like high-end fashion photography for a brief while. And from there migrated into film, whereby with a couple of digital learning combined with online mentorships and other forms of education, practiced film and began to work in the film industry. And moved on from that to my first feature, which was When Love Happens Again. And thereafter did another one that was coming from Sanity. I think that's now on Netflix. Did a bunch of TV independent feature titles in between and some documentary works, and migrated forward and added into like commercials. And that has like been like the entire journey where that I've actually gone through. And majorly presently, there's like a whole platter of commercials because the whole COVID situation has clamped down a lot of things, which is actually slowed down since the entire COVID situation.
Yeah, so you've worked in a multitude of industries. You started off in sound, moved to fashion, moved to film, kind of collect your knowledge and expertise and take that and then move that onto your next career move.
Yeah.
Is that how you've been working?
Oh, okay. So pretty much it's I consider it as a journey, like trying to discover myself, trying to like pack what I'm trying to say or find the right tools or the platform that actually suits the entire conversation I'm trying to have. And in that moment of that journey, it happened across several, it just happened to happen. It happened across several spectrums, from sound to photography and now to film. And living in Nigeria means that you just can't be, so to speak, one way. You have to be versatile in a couple of things because we have so many curveballs throws at us. You get like, first of all, there's the economic situations whereby the cost of gas is not equal around the world. Most of us have to work 5 times more to be able to like equate to what we have to do. So we have to like find a way of leveling that playing field and making sure that we still try to deliver a creative intent. And in the middle of all that challenges, there's a pressing to stay effective and efficient. And that's where Canon comes in, because it's just a solution that works. And from my first film camera to my first digital camera, all of a sudden have been Canon, because that's been a solution I've been able to like grab and actually work for me at every time of my career. So it moved up gradually into where we had to now start shooting films, and there was the need to like we need to like have smaller files, great codecs. We need to have we just can't babysit the camera because there's not enough robust crew to actually make things work like in ideal situation. We do not have all the facets going on, so you have to like juggle a couple of hats to make that and function. And funny enough, that's the kind of perfect, I'll say the perfect specimen that's required to function in this period, because in this period, there's not a lot of collaboration that's possible due to the pandemic you get. So it pays when you are skilled in a couple of things to actually bring the intent without it losing or taking away from the vision. So Canon's camera became like a useful tool because I didn't have to babysit the camera. You get when you turn it on, put it on the codec and like, okay, this is what you expect. You know what you expect, and you could have the confidence to say, okay, going into the scene as a one man, with a limited crew, or going to several scenarios whereby you have to like do some low budget commercial with very, very, very limited crew of like 10 people, right?
Yeah.
You could like trust your tool of choice is actually going to deliver on its promise, and not like we get into post-production and we have to like scratch your heads and think about things and see how you get the quality. Because if you even look at the lenses, right, there's scenarios whereby we've been stuck that, oh, if we could just get this shot, and with the cinema lenses you could just go down to 1.2 and get that stop of light, and you're still within the range and the context of the story you're trying to tell, and it doesn't like take away so much from all you're trying to say, the entire conversation. Because what good is technology if it's not assisting you in delivering your intent that you have to now like self-correct or autocorrect for, kind of. So it just works. Yeah. So that actually moved across a broad range of codecs, whereby there's now the C200 who gave raw capabilities, and obviously the C700 now, which have been my workhorse for most recent time. You get And funny enough, that camera was not designed to be a one-band man camera. You get, it's actually designed to be a studio camera. But come on, this is Nigeria. We had to like improvise, like I say, improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Yeah.
You get, so I had to like redesign it within the means to actually find solutions that actually work for me.
So what I'm getting from you is that, you know, Canon's technology really complements the way you work, even if you're not using the kit as it was intended, but you make it work for you and make it work for whatever project it is that you're working on.
Yes, the truth is that most of the engineers in Canon Lab that design these solutions have ideal scenarios in their head. But like with the real world samples, they may not always translate that way. We, the end users, begin to pick up these tools and find more unique ways we could actually adapt those to that they may never actually thought about. You get. They may never actually design a camera for that. Means it was probably not designed for the way it's being used. But take, for example, when the 5D Mark II Revolution came out, it was designed as a hybrid camera just to encourage people with the video function, right? And all of a sudden, it made its way into feature films. It made its way into, started the whole revolution. Oh, there's now a new small form camera whereby we start having all of the third-party solutions to enhance all that we could milk out of that camera. So a tool is only as good as its user. And it just goes to, and it's a lot more easier when that tool becomes a digital assistant rather than something you have to like babysit. It just works. And that's good enough for me.
I love that. It just works. And what about the quality of Canon Cinema cameras and lenses together? What's your experience of that? Quality is really high, but I would love to hear what you think.
So on the conversation of quality, right, Nollywood has actually made its way, we as a collective, right, as an independent collective, has actually journeyed our way from what we were to where we are. And we begin to receive a lot of international attention due to what we will be able to do within our means. And most of these independent creators have actually fell back. I know a bunch of them because like it's a very competitive industry you get. And when somebody raised the bar like, oh yeah, how did you achieve that? And you're like, oh yeah, what glass did you use? You get, what was your process? And there's this whole communication and exchange of information that will try to replicate that. And Canon has been in the heart of several pools of some of these micro productions actually coming out and being able to like replicate this. And this helped us a lot in way to like end up quality. If you take our film from 5-10 years ago and take our recent titles now, you could see there's a glaring difference day and night to what we can now produce. You get,
of course.
There is no content. There's almost assuming if we take a sample pool of 100 persons, right? They're all content creators. There's a very high likely chance that 90 of the 100 would have a Canon glass. You get, whether it be photographic or whether it be cinema, whether it be a kit lens, there is a Canon glass. And that just speaks to the dependability of the tech tool itself to actually do what it says it's supposed to do, as opposed to we just trying to like walk around the curveballs.
Yeah. And what lenses do you use on those cameras and why? Do you have any favorites?
Oh, personally, my favorites actually leave around the 35. You get, it's just I find it as is the midway without actually too much distortion of the face, but also bears itself a bit of character. I was fortunate recently to actually play with the Summerays with the C500 Mark II that came out during that period, and that just blew my mind away. You get, the standard Canon cine lens I've come to know and love. I could just think about it. I know what's there, because one thing people do not understand about lens is that with resolution going up, right, you need to have glasses that have the ability to resolve those resolution, not just see light, not just bring in the entire spectrum of that optics has to have the resolving capability of such resolutions that are attached to these digital senses. And when there's like a disconnect, because filmmaking is like a three-sided pyramid whereby you have like the art, the science, and also the business of it, right? You really have to know what's happening on the tech side. You can't just be logged on the whole creative side and like, oh no, I do not care about you get. So because you in such scenarios, you would not be setting up yourself for success. You owe it to your story to be able to deliver on such fronts, on such formats, and how things actually play out. And with that, right, tying it back to the lens conversation, that for the Summerays, you find out that you have two lenses in one. I have like my normal Canon CNE when I'm like at my 2.8 and get my shallow depth of field, the full frame. When you open wide down, you have this whole new characteristics that's midway between the K35 and some kind of vintage characteristics that are just independent to this lens, right? My standard Canon lens has been like my bread and butter foundation of creating looks, because it's just that it's quite neutral with its own, I would like to call them neutral characteristics, because each lens has certain characters that actually define how they could assist your story. You get how the flare, the chromatic aberration, how the bokehs and all these other micro things actually adds to the experience that we actually end up creating for the end users. You get. So for the Canon CNEs, they have been by my side all time. I know them as the back of my fingers, and the 35 has been my favorite. You get, and that has been my workhorse. But the Cinema EOS just opens a whole new possibility of, oh, okay, so we can now do this now. I now start giving you ideas of, okay, how can we tie that to become a character and actually following an emotional character or the emotional arc of a story, and how can you use that as a feature? Because storytelling has to happen in layers of conversation. It has to be embedded in layers. And the more fluent you are in the language of cinema, because cinema has its own language, the more you'll be able to like communicate and express yourself. I, for one, am like on my journey to actually finding myself and unpacking my baggages and expressing the true voice of what I'm saying. And over the journey, right, all this piece of technology like the C200, the Canon CNE glasses, even the photographic glasses, which was in my early days of my 70s, all have been part of expression tools that have helped me craft what I'm trying to say at every given time.
But what I love is that throughout this entire journey, I know we are obviously on a Canon live Q&A, but I'm genuinely getting from you that this is the only kit you're using, the only kit you have been using, and the confidence that it instills in you to go out and achieve what you want to achieve is just, it's just huge. True,
because we've had, to be honest, I've had other clients whereby in certain scenarios I've had to like deliver with certain specifications to different specifications that require alternate manufacturing products for the creative intent you get. But what's the bread and butter of our industry? We do a lot of dramas, we do a lot of sit downs, we do a lot of interviews, we do a lot of, there's not a lot of like superhero flying VFX stuff at the moment because we're still like bridging the skill gap and having a conversation and growing that into like a place where we could actually speak in those kind of conversation and express more of our arts, because we have so much rich culture heritage that we would love to express, but we're still learning the language and getting them, bridging those gaps. You get. But in the reality of the context of where we speak and where we stand now, creation is no longer limited to you have to be in this system, you have to be in this, and that's what Canon has done. Because if you look at the entire range, it's almost like a product for everyone, depending on where you are and what you're trying to create. You get. It's okay if you cannot afford, or if you can get like the high-end cinema cameras like the C500 Mark IIs and stuff. It's okay if you can get them. You get. From as great as the DSLR line to the entry levels, from the C100, right? That's still a great warhorse. You get. Because the truth is, until we, most of us have realized that more is never always more. You get. And for example, the old C100 Mark II. It's been like 5 to 7 years now that it has been out, right? And if you look at that same sensor, you have like a 4K sensor, and the chrominess of each sensors are never always equal. You have like 25% red, 50% green, and 25% blue, and the camera brings out HD. But if you scale down from 4K means like a quad HD. You're actually getting the rich HD. So that camera was designed like, okay, so we know you may not be able to maximize data range of 4K and stuff like that, and you just come into the cinema world, you get. But here's a very good HD that you could actually start off with, you get. When you're ready to come up, as you grow with us, we have like all the things available for you. And that's like a conversation you could step back and see in the entire product lineup and how they become like effective and actually become a storytelling tool.
Yeah. So earlier today, one of the cinematographers was explaining how important skin tone is for him. You know, is that the same for you? And how do you like, you know, how Canon deals with skin tones?
So the holy grail of skin tones and color and representation of people in cameras has always been, our earliest memory starts from film. You get, and you hear people, they say, how does this look to film? How close can this be to film? How close, you get. And Canon has done a very great work in actually creating very pleasing skin tones, especially for dark skin tones. You get. If you go by the history, we've been represented wrongly. You get, whether it be by negligence or whatever it is, we've been represented. But Canon has been able to like create pleasing skin tones, which is where the whole myth of the Canon color science that has lived up to its name, came from. We get to like, okay, when you set the camera and expose it right, you do not have to think that, oh, I have to like go in post-production and color correct. You get from the inbuilt viewing lot you actually see from the camera, you could actually see great results. And now we have ways of putting our own technical transformation like LUTs into the camera. So for example, if you have like a translation to your favorite film stocks, it's just like a mathematical calculations between left and right. You get, and you're like, okay, so this is Canon and this is film. Hey, Canon, can you help me like tweak that up to become film? And it's almost like, oh, okay, here you go, boom.
Yeah.
You get. So it's become a lot more like not a lot of thinking. It's not something that you actually overthink to actually do, because creating should be fun. You get, because there's no point creating if you have to like deal with so much technical load that you have to like be like some super wizard in it. So yes, Skinning has been absolutely pleasing.
Yeah, and like you say, it's so important. It's always been important, but especially now, So let's talk Nollywood. For those of us or those of you who don't know much about the industry, tell us what Nollywood's all about.
Oh, okay. So Nollywood is basically the filmmaking industry of Nigeria that has grown by itself. It's almost like I would
Oh, I think we may have lost connection. I'm not sure whose connection if it's mine or Daniel's. But it's really interesting about the Nollywood industry, actually, because I was talking to Paul about this yesterday. It's something that, for me anyway, it's just come completely out of left field, but not like it's come from nowhere. There's a vast amount of films and content and stuff coming out of Nollywood, and it's just really impressive where they're taking their industry. And like Daniel says, there's still lots of stuff to learn. There's still technology that hasn't necessarily been developed on that side of the world, or the people to deal with it, but it's very much on their radar. So I feel like it's an industry that you definitely need to watch out for, because it is coming. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely seeing a lot more Nigerian-based films and TV shows, and yeah, it's really quite fascinating and interesting. So it's nice to hear from someone like Daniel who is taking it to the next level, basically. Yeah. Paul, are you there?
I am, yes.
I think I've got you, but I don't have Daniel, which is a shame.
Daniel's back in. I can see him on the top.
Yeah.
Oh, you're back. Yes. Sorry about that, Daniel. We lost you for a second.
Yeah, welcome to Nigeria. Yeah.
Mate, my house is like this too sometimes. Okay, so I'm not sure when you cut off exactly, or when you thought we cut off.
Oh, yeah, I kind of figured that out, though. So part of the conversation I was saying was that we came up as an independent collective consciousness, and somehow we found commerce in the art of storytelling. You get, and we just pushed forward with more and more possibilities that would actually deliver on scales of the story we tell. You get, so we started with micro productions, and we've actually grown that a lot more. And basically, most of our storytelling that has existed to date has been drama conversations. You get. They're a little bit, if you take them on the like percentage pyramids, like the biggest at the bottom, you say is drama, where we actually have a lot of cultured conversations happens, a lot of stuff like that, and that has been evolving. There's been a little, and like the only great thing that has been happening to us has been the strides that we've actually taken, or the efforts we've actually taken to actually push the boundaries and include more genres into our conversation and include the way we choose to express ourselves. You get, and like we've been making waves globally. We've been getting a lot of eyeballs that's actually we've been actually bringing our point of view to the table. We're like slowly but shifting our seats and come to like the big voice statement like, yo, this is us and this is what we speak. Yeah. You get, and this is how we choose to like represent ourselves. And that's what Nollywood has been about, though. And it has been such a like a very strong force, because a lot of if you take a look at the industry, the entire industry in all its format, the whole visual industry, which includes like the music, which includes Nollywood, which includes other microforms of storytelling that exist, right? A lot of them, there's this exchange of slow and good, like where one inspires another, and a lot of it has been to the efforts of brave people, brave producers, brave people who has wore several hats and delivered on their promise on several storytelling levels. You get, and that has been amazing so far.
Yeah, and so what does it mean to you, to Nollywood, to get more recognition and to branch out to other places and to just, I don't know, be alongside other film productions in other countries doing exactly what you're doing?
Okay, so that's quite an interesting conversation, because I just feel we have the freedom to say our own stories the way that we choose, and I truly feel that it represents us. And that's been super amazing because there's been a lot of conversations over the years that have grown how they perceive Nigeria. Like, people don't believe we have contemporary stories. People don't believe we have like the visual lives that you could actually find. People don't believe we also have like the Game of Thrones kind of tussle that would happen on the several levels, because take Nigeria, we have more than 200 cultures. You get, each of them have their unique origin. Each of them have something to say. Each of them have a way they see themselves in the place of the world. That's more than 200 rich origin stories to actually tap into. So it's been a lot more. It gladdens my heart seeing that we begin to like come to a table and have like a place on the platform to actually like say, this is who I am. Like, this is us. You get, and that has been great so far because we work independently, and this is why solutions like this, like Canon, I'm not trying to like be a preacher, because this is actually the reality you get. If you have all the money in the world, you could probably do, I don't know, buy a rocket and shoot something, or buy the most expensive thing. You get, I literally dropped the call because of my internet connection. You get, there are several couples we have to like deal with and actually make work for us. And in all that madness, we also try to like smile and make a living in it. Anything that helps that make easier is actually a win. And that's how Canon works for us though.
Yeah, I love that. And what I love as well is that doing this is ultimately, obviously it's about the kit and using the kit to bring these stories to life, but making people proud of, of Nigerian stories and bringing that culture to different cultures.
Sure.
I think that's really important, very important. So what are the, like COVID aside and the pandemic, what are the current challenges that you're facing in Nollywood?
Well, first of all, it's great if we could have more platforms to actually sell our movies. It would be great if we could have more places to actually bring what we have to offer to the table. That would be super helpful because it will increase the awareness of who we are and what we present in the world. It will help redefine our identity and our culture. And this will actually give us like a voice because we're actually like a growing audience. You get, there's so much competition in the industry that has actually enabled us grow, you get. And a lot of work and a lot of things are beginning to like complement each other. Like you see a filmmaker comes out with this title and you like go about it. Okay, how can I raise the bar up? How can I step up the game? Can you tell me what you do? Or how did you do that? How can I replicate that in my own process? You get. And a lot of that collective work has actually helped bridge the gap with some of the challenges. Obviously, we also have skill gap challenge, you get. Like how certain things are done or how things are done. A mentor of mine told me something very unique. You get that his name is Christian Epps, right? He worked on Selma. You get, and he was like, a time will come and you all Nigerians who wear multiple hats, right? There'll be a time whereby people like you will be super needed because we can't afford to actually stay in a specialized system anymore. Yeah. And now the pandemic hit. This was before the pandemic hit. He was working on a project when he actually said that to me. You get, and the pandemic then hit, and now I have on my commercial calls like, hey, we need people who can do this, and we need minimal crew. We can't just take everybody there. So we need people who could do this, that, and that. And you're like, oh, okay. The people who can do that will be like, oh, sorry, you missed out on that. And people who can do that are like doing that. And this is what has encouraged us to get on how we've been able to like mitigate that. And on the conversation of skill gap, obviously, it's a big maze out there in terms of knowledge and where we want to get to. So it's still really a struggle, taking a few steps back, seeing the bigger picture and trying to find that straight line between where you are and where you want to be, because it's very easy to get lost in that whole knowledge maze, trying to like say this is what you're doing or that's what navigating where you have to be. And that has been some of the challenge you actually see though. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is, the fact that you can identify these challenges and, there's a solution to everything. It might be long-term, could be short-term, but once they're identified and then, that's how you move forward. And it sounds like you definitely want to take this industry forward. Challenges.
Well, True. That's very true because there's a term that's coined. I won't say it's an official term, but there's a term that's coined where they call younger filmmakers the new Nollywood, because we try out things because you can't expect to do the same thing you've been doing the way and expect a different result. So like, okay, what's the Ehimen going the other way? You get there's obviously I did a very interesting film back then that's that was done on like a year back. That was in Toronto International Film Festival for a couple of recognition awards, and I could think of that story a couple of years back. It was not possible. Like it wouldn't fly. You would have so much limitations around your head, but now it's almost like a brave new world. Okay, you have an idea, try it. If it works, yeah, it works. We're all just trying keys like, okay, which one unlocks the door? Since we know this is a door we need to open to get to that next door that will take us to that next door that will probably get us to where we want to go. Because we're young and we have like time on our side, we could actually be brave enough to try a lot of things. And somehow I feel that daring spirit is still in us and we do not lose it. And that has actually increased the quality of the conversations of the younger generations and other people, and how we've been able to like move the industry forward by our contributions.
Well, yeah, of course. If you've got like a group of people who are really fighting for something and fighting for this and moving, and have got the means to do it, why wouldn't it move forward? So yeah. So how have streaming services benefited Nollywood? Has that helped out at all?
So before, right, we ran our economy has grown by its own micro self. What I mean by that is like we have our cinema hubs, we go watch our films, and create like the box office and be able to like generate the internal revenue that probably ties into the economy, But with streaming services coming in, it adds two conversations. One, there's I don't know how to call it. I can't say capital flight, but money moves from them to us, improves the economy, help us improve our productions, help us get a broad view spectrum to the world. Like you have like a whole bunch of audience that could like go, okay, so what does Nigeria look like? You could like watch in Nigeria. Oh, so they wear miniskirts in Nigeria. Oh, they do this in Nigeria. Like a whole lot. Like, it just becomes like an educational factor. That you can actually now get representation. And probably before certain films that are very arty and not so. For example, like there's a film that came out, Lost to Koroshi, right? It was an interesting piece. And that kind of film will not do well locally in terms of box office success, because we love a bunch of dramas and comedies, but it found its own niche and audience living online, and it's like, oh, okay, so that's deep. Oh, that's like a different conversation, and it has the audience appeal and so much success for it. And that's what the contribution of streaming services bring towards us. It gives us the room to be able to turn the cycle of the engine more on one more time, that we can actually replicate the success we've been able to like enjoy so far.
Yeah, wicked. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to bring Paul into the conversation. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Lucy, nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too. Okay, so I'm conscious of the time, so I'm just going to dive straight in with a question from the audience. So Daniel's talked us through a few of the cameras that he's used from the Canon Cinema EOS lineup. Can you tell us a bit more about the range and its benefits?
Yeah, I mean, Daniel's quite right that we have a camera that will fit in just about any genre of production at every skill level, with a wide range of recording capabilities. The beauty is, again, Daniel alluded to this earlier, that it allows you to grow. So as your skills improve and your experience improves, or your ideas become refreshed, you're able to continue to use the Canon range. But not only that, once you do upgrade the camera, you'll find that your original camera, if you've kept hold of it, you can use that as the backup camera and the B camera, simply because the workflows do sort of intermesh so nicely together when it comes to post-production. We've always been renowned for our color accuracy, our color science, and again, Daniel mentioned this, the skin tone reproduction. And when you combine that with the optical excellence of the lenses, it just gives you the whole package, really. We used to say that you can go from glass to glass with Canon, so from the glass on the front of the lens right the way through to the glass in the ND filters and the sensor, right the way through to our monitors. You can create something and then look at something with a Canon brand on it.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about that, and obviously Daniel did say this earlier, but there is a camera for everyone and different skill sets, which is so important. Not everyone's that au fait, not everyone has the knowledge that you guys have, but really wants to get into the industry or really wants to get into filmmaking. So it's a really important point to hammer home that Canon's products are, for every man, basically.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people as well. I mean, again, the C100 Mark II and the new C70, they don't record RAW. The C70 is 4K. whereas the C100 Mark II is a full HD camera, even though it's got a 4K sensor, captures in 2K and then downscales it. But there are a lot of customers that don't need that. They don't need those huge file sizes. They don't need those complicated workflows that you'll get with RAW for the C700FF at way the other end of the scale. So yeah, but it's important that they're not compromising on their basic image quality. I mean, I was asked on when we were allowed to do events, what are the three most important things for a filmmaker? And I said, well, it's simple. It's image quality, image quality, and image quality.
Yeah.
And that's true right across the range. You get that consistent quality right the way through the range from the lenses and the cameras.
Yeah. So on that note, what are the technical advantages for Canon then to be one of the rare companies who develops cameras and lenses together?
Well, it's not only the cameras and lenses, of course, it's the sensors and the processors. The Canon sensors that are used in Canon cameras and nothing else. They are made by us. The processors are made by us. They're all designed to work together. The lenses and the bodies obviously are designed to work together, and we've seen that the RF mount with the improved communication and the improvements in things like autofocus and image stabilization. Yeah. But it's also the whole evolution of the systems, and we do listen to feedback. And if you cast your mind back to the original C300, which is coming up to 9 years since it was released, and you look at the C300 Mark II, nearly everything that was different on the Mark II was a direct result of speaking to people like Daniel, who are end users, and then implementing that where it's possible. And we do that continuously. We will look to improve, to bring products to the market we think the market wants and that our customers need or even ask for. So I think that the fact that we're able to have this whole sort of ecosystem, if you like, of filmmaking equipment, including the DSLRs and the mirrorless cameras, which again are all started now to be much easier to work together and to blend together in final. So you can have your A camera is the C700 FF. Your second unit camera is the C500 Mark II with the same sensor. Then you come down maybe for your B camera and C camera, you've got the C300 Mark II paired up with the new C70. Again, sharing the same sensor and the same field of view. So it's that flexibility as well that's built into this whole system that makes it such valuable tools for people like Daniel and the other filmmakers we've spoken to over the last 2 days.
Yeah, and I think it's also, this attention to detail of the compatibility and everything working together. It instills users, especially long-term users, with the confidence that investing in a Canon product is going to have that longevity. It's going to, if you want to deviate and get a different camera or a different setup, you're still going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you look at all the recent cameras, so C700, 200, 300 Mark III, 500 Mark II, C70, the optical sensor of the sensor is in the same plane. So if you have a shoulder rig that'll fit one camera, it'll work on another camera. But you don't have to worry about variations in height. The cinema lenses, the primes, the Samira primes, they all have the same rotation from sort of near focus to far focus, from wide open T-stop to fully closed. It's all the same amount of movement needed, the same gearing. It's massively compatible across the whole range, and it's all these little things, because it's not just the camera and the lens is just the start of it. It's all the other things, some of which would be stuff that we don't make, but it's all those other things that need to come together to make that tool do what it's designed to do.
Yeah, the cogs of the machine go round.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Daniel, you now.
True. To add to what Paul was saying just now, right? To briefly interrupt and add to what Paul was saying, if we take a couple of steps back and look at the entire industry we have in Nigeria, right? From Nollywood to the music videos, you find yourself in scenarios whereby the little things that actually built into Canon cameras become what works for you. For example, a very hot sunny day, you need an ND and you have a mat box with your filtration. Some mat boxes don't always have the space to stack it up, and probably if that's on the gimbal, that becomes a balance problem. You get most Canon cameras have that ND built-in body, and it's just a touch away, boom, and it's there. You get. And the previous cameras, up until the recent C500, C300 Mark IIIs, right? CLOC 2 was, you have to be like a technical guru to actually find your way to actually bring it out. Most people love CLOC 3, you get. But CLOC 2 was amazing for us because a lot of low light filming we do, right? Those information in dark shadows are critical to actually bring them back in post and actually standardize them or be able to massage that signal. Now we have DGO sensors, right? And it literally just exposes on 2 different levels. So our darkest dark stay clean above the noise floor. The brightest brights are protected. And we now have, for example, not everybody can afford like a DIT card and like bring that and do like a live grade on set and stuff like that. So we could literally build like our show look, right? And say, okay, this is how I want the movie to look, right? Let's put the camera and start the light. Those tiny little things have like actually influenced a lot of the representation or the way we could actually push our ideas. You get the music video industry can actually use like the 300, the C300 Mark III or the C500 Mark II on gimbals, and you could just go in handheld, jump into location guerrilla style, quickly get your footage, quickly get out of that place. You're able to like move very versatile. It opens a whole new kind of worms, whereby we can actually explore different things and different pathways to whatever we used to understand that our workflow has now been diversified and changed. Because right now we have HDR conversations, and that's what like the streaming networks are actually asking for, right? But we have 12-bit RAW that can actually afford to be able to deliver in such formats. So we can actually now say, okay, the only missing thing that's missing our is a HDR display. Guess what? Canon still has one. So it keeps everything in-house, like it's locked in-house, that you can actually track the consistency and like, okay, you try to limit your fail points between several third parties, like having conversation between themselves.
And Paul, can you just explain how the DGO technology works?
Yeah, so there's sort of two ways that you can try and expose something, and particularly when you're going for HDR, you can use what some of our competitors use, which is a dual ISO system, which works very well. But the way that we prefer to go about it is that the image is in effect imaged twice. One image is prioritized for shadows, one for highlights. These images are then combined, but this is all happening before we go into processing. And the big advantage of using this amplified at sensor level process is that it allows us to have much lower noise, because anything that happens in the process, it does tend to increase noise, and we can use it at any ISO. It's so effective, in fact, that the default noise reduction setting is 0. So it's just gives you, again, Daniel has just said again that HDR is becoming almost standard now for capture. May not be able to output in HDR.
Yeah, that's coming.
May not be able to be viewed in HDR, but you need to future-proof that project. So it's just another tool within that toolbox, if you like, that allows you to get the best possible image out of the equipment. And again, it's just, again, we are always striving to produce technology that actually helps the people using the kit. That's the whole point of developing these things, is to make the creatives' lives easier, to allow them to realize their vision and produce the images they know and love.
Yeah, absolutely. So Daniel, in Nollywood, has RAW recording been adopted on many productions?
Well, basically, everybody loves recording RAW. Not all of us understand how to like maximize the capabilities because we're still bridging our skill gaps. But most people just like to like play it safe and start from a point whereby if we get somebody who knows this better than us, right, they would have a better footing to be able to start from. So before with the RMF, it was like a challenge because you had like huge file size, but we now have raw light, and they go into like this tiny CFS cards that actually can live on hard drives, and we're able to like record them and get 12-bit out of them and be able to like push and pull them. And the funny thing about the entire 12-bit codec for me is this, right? Not all of us yet understand the entire full production post-production workflow. So some of us get to do things wrongly, and somehow the codecs take it after being abused and still comes out the way the person wants. Although there's like much quicker and ideal way to actually push pull. So you have like a rich codec that's robust, that can actually give you a lot of options that you can actually ping back between off, and irrespective of your choices, you still get to like come up on top. No, that's no brainers. We mostly record raw, except on long form format like documentaries and some other things whereby we know that, okay, we do not know where the story leads. And they're like, the XF ABC is still way good You get, and what you could like get out of it is as close to the raw. You get, it's super good that sometimes because of the some of the output formats you're delivering to, whether it be TV, web, or whatever it is you're delivering to, most times the audience do not notice whether that was raw, whether that was XFVBC. You get, maybe when you get like a streaming table, you have to have the conversation of, oh, okay, we need raw, we need IMF formats, we need it to be mastered in this, there needs to be that. And you have to like check all those boxes from the conversation. You get, but most of the time, from the capture phase of the imagery, we try as much as possible to try and set up ourselves for success so that we have the flexibility to be able to go the direction we intend.
Yeah. And let's go back to HDR for a sec. How have recent requests for deliverables changed the way you work?
So, for example, HDR has become the big thing, you get, and we're slowly catching on, you get. Netflix came around not too long ago to Nigeria and set up shop, you get, and all the streaming companies are also looking that direction. A lot of the movies before then were designed for cinema because that's how we've rotated them, you get, and a lot of them has been repurposed, you get. So there's almost like a look gap when you look at, okay, what's going on now, what's going on. But presently, as we speak, there are a lot of people who are like refining their workflows to be able to meet up that standard and actually deliver in a color managed pipeline, in a color managed process that has like an end-to-end production that actually preserves the director's creative intent. And for example, a recent film that just came out, one of the biggest titles, by a director in Nigeria, Korean Flying, was Citation. And that was like on the C500 Mark II. And there's like a present cinema release that's on the way. So if you choose to like, when Netflix say, okay, we want HDR, which they actually said their dates, right? He'll be able to deliver that because he captured in 12-bit. He captured and maximized the entire range of that, you get. And not only that though, that has actually, we're no longer in the conversation whereby, oh, okay, you can just pass off this file and you're done with. You have to like work in a future-proof way, that irrespective of the delivery, because there's so many deliverables coming out. You get, we have HDR 1000 nits, there's HDR 600 nits. Everybody wants to master for each device. Each device has its own kind of, it's still not yet almost standardized, you get. But there's the sweet spot in it whereby you have a robust digital negative, as I would like to call it, which is your mastered file that can actually live on several spectrums depending on the direction such projects take, you get. So if you find distribution on the web or you find it online or broadcast on TV, you could easily just go in there and pick up the version and say, oh yes, and the entire creative intent of the creative is also preserved in such works. And that has been like more of the situation that's been going around.
Yeah. And how have you found Canon workflows for grading?
For those of us that are not skilled in grading, right, the Canon look works like a breeze. You get, it just sets in the ballpark and you actually can tweak a couple of things. You get. For those of us who explore more robust, for my a couple of works I do that requires more robust color transformation, right? It's still a breeze because almost like with every iteration of Canon, the C-Log exposure format still stayed the same. You get. C-Log is still C-Log, C-Log 2 is still C-Log 2, C-Log 3 is still C-Log 3, but the sensors are different. So what you get out of each sensor almost looks as if, oh, the C-Log 2 out of this other camera is not the same as this, but that sensor has a new range because with every passing year, technology gets cheaper, a lot of things get cheaper, so a lot of more doors are open, you get. So for example, DJO was not possible in the initial C500, you get. Now it's possible in the C300 Mark II. Now we have it now in the C70, right? And what C-Log 2 can actually get out of that, it's now like way more amazing as opposed to what you can get out of the previous cameras. But because it's still Canon, there's this backward compatibility that's established between cameras that allow it work seamlessly. So it becomes a fluid transition, a fluid conversation back and forth between generations of cameras when you're trying to like have that conversation, because you could have like your C300 Mark II as your old camera and you move like the C300 Mark III, you get. And you could have like, okay, you have a situation whereby you have to like deliver in 4K. Netflix still accepts that camera as an approved camera for 4K work site, and integrating it with the new cameras will not be a problem because they also exist in that whole Canon ecosystem, which is why I said the fact that third-party handshakes are limited in the entire Canon workflow is a lot easier to figure out things because one is still one in most of all the other generations of cameras that has been represented. You get, there are several tweaks and more benefits, but it's still relatively the same and has been a breeze to actually work with.
So we're talking a lot about workflow, spent a lot of time on that, but how about the camera and lens body itself? You know, how important is it for you to have a durable, robust camera?
So because we work with nimble crews, right? We, like I said initially, I myself, I run like a small production company that gets into things you get. So having a kit whereby you could rely on the color accuracy, you could rely on the robust codec options that actually could go either ways depending on your client's deliverable, right? And having it in a small form factor because, for example, if you're trying to lug around the C700 on a gimbal, you probably need a running tool and some mega whatever the carrier you get. But now we have like C500 Mark II, and that could like live on this whole Asian gimbals that actually come, the Xeon gimbals that are coming out, and that could actually still work the same. And the camera has also internal camera stabilization in them. You get, so if you're having a scenario by, oh yeah, you can't afford this, you can't. It's almost like the camera was designed for to be versatile for people like us. You get, because there's a lot of things, or a lot of problems that we do face on a real time basis. You get, and it's important to be very versatile. And things like image stabilization, color accuracy, which is super key, robust codec that allows us to like push and pull the intent of the creativity of the project, right? And how we actually have to have those conversations on levels. And the fact that we're not having international conversations, not just a local in-house conversations and having our voice heard, right? A lot of things we have to like, quote unquote, set our house straight, like clean up our house, you get. And having solutions to rely on that actually fit in properly without breaking the bank, because we really do have an economic situation there, you get. You have to like work 5 times to get stuff. So when you're taking that, your hard-earned money, that a DP rate that you compare yourself overseas could be like X $1,000. And you may have to do 4 of those X's of those $1,000 here to be able to like match that in terms of value. So when you're taking that sweat and blood of money and like putting it into a camera, you want to be sure that you're putting it in hands that you actually trust, that's not going to like throw you out the next year or the next 4 or 5 years. You're actually immune to whatever change that's coming, you get. And that's what most of these Canon cameras have represented. And if you look at how they've also gone far to deliver, as old as the C100 Mark II, it still delivers, you get. So staying within that safe margin and making financial sane decisions to actually protect yourself from insanity, it's a no-brainer.
So talking ridiculously reliable bits of kit here. And so you kind of talked about some of the key features that are just, that you love, that are so beneficial to you. But Paul, can you talk to us about some of the most impressive features of Canon Cinema lineup? I know we've gone through them, but as we kind of draw to a close, it'd be good to just, find out what makes these cameras and lenses so exceptional.
I think I sort of go back to the image quality, really. The interoperability of the cameras, the way that they can all work together, the ability to have a consistently high image quality across the range, compatibility with a huge range of lenses. I mean, 160 million EF lenses in the world that theoretically could be attached onto the front of the cameras, But I think as well, it's the fact that if you can use a C300 and you move up to a C500 Mark II or a C300 Mark III, you'll find broadly similar menu layouts. So getting to know that camera is a lot quicker, which means it's more productive more quickly. And at the end of the day, these are tools, and their job is to create the content that gives you the living and gives you your life. I think the color accuracy across the range is excellent and consistent, and that's important as well. And just generally the build quality. Again, Daniel's just said it very, very well, that these things, you invest a lot of yourself when you buy one of these things, and you need to be confident that it's not going to break and fall apart on the first or second job. I mean, notwithstanding gravity, obviously, you can't legislate for that. But yeah, I think just having a reliable, user-friendly tool that allows you to create that image that your brain has envisaged in a good value system, and I think we deliver that across the range.
Yeah, I think so as well. And not just Daniel, but a few other people I've been talking to. It's this heritage, this Canon heritage that no matter where you stepped in on the timeline in your career, there's just this, consistent feature set, consistent usability, productivity, and I've got a lot of respect for Canon in that respect, especially, I think we were talking about this yesterday, taking feedback from people like Daniel and other DOPs and filmmakers, and really taking that feedback on board and putting that into cameras to create, an amazing cinema lineup or another lineup of cameras. So yeah, the Canon heritage is super strong, and I don't think it's going to wane anytime soon.
No, certainly not.
You know what's new? You know what's new right now? We've got women in film now. And so when I actually said in the beginning that we have democratization of storytelling, it's not just only a super technical place where you have jeans and pants of men and guys and running. We've got women in films, and I tell you, they are titans. You get. I could name a few. There's like a Monica doing her stuff. There's like Kemi Adetiba doing her stuff. We have women in film that are actually doing all of them actually deploying technology in the way they know how to actually assist storytelling. And all this like just goes to show that when you have technology becoming a digital assistant that actually assist functionality, right? A lot of voices of equity is now being replicated, so to speak. You get, and in that way, technology could be, like I say, technology could be used for great good or great evil. You get, and in this case, right, we have a tool that's allowed us like tell us ourselves, this is who we are, this is us, and we're making our income off it. And there are like so many good things along the way. There's like great lenses, and we could do that. We could make Superman fly now. We could make our brand skin tone this great in our music videos. You get, we could do all these possibilities, and it's super fun. I can tell, like 2020 to be a creator in 2010 is the best time ever, because there's a whole lot of solutions that exist now. 5 years ago, it was a nightmare thinking of it.
I think that's such a wonderful way to end or to wrap up our session. Daniel, it's been such an insight hearing from you, and then all I can do is wish you and your projects the best of luck. I hope to see more Nollywood. I'm seeing it more and more. When you disappeared earlier, I think when your connection went, I was explaining that it's definitely something that I've definitely noticed picking up. So the more momentum, the more we'll see guys like you doing your thing. So keep doing it, keep going.
Yeah.
That brings us not only to the end of this session, but the end of all the sessions. This is our final live Q&A. It's been so much fun, and how can I forget? I've got to say thanks to Paul as well. Paul's done 2 of these sessions, just an incredibly all knowledgeable human being who I imagine could talk about these cameras for days. And of course, thanks to you guys, the audience. Thank you for tuning in. If you've watched all 6 sessions, fantastic. If you haven't, I urge you to go onto the Canon YouTube channel and watch them back, because they are brilliant. Lots of really interesting individuals and inspiring conversations that we've been having. I guess all that's left to say is there's also a podcast. We've got a special Shutter Stories podcast. It's a brilliant listen featuring some of the cinematographers, DOPs, filmmakers that we've had in these sessions. I'm not just saying it because, I was hosting it. It's really interesting, really fascinating. If you want to dive deeper into some of the technology and some of the things we've touched on in these sessions over the last couple of days, you do well to listen to that. And just to reiterate, we do have all the other live stream interviews that have taken place over the past 2 days. You can view those on the Canon Europe YouTube page. Just to give you a reminder of some of the things we've covered, first behind the scenes look at the new Canon EOS C70, how full frame influences cinematography, what a camera means to video journalists. There's lots of really interesting topics that we've dove into, so make sure you go and check that out. I'd like to say thanks to Canon. I think you've done an incredible job of making the most of a bad situation. This whole virtual experience has been fantastic. It's been an absolute pleasure to be part of it. Daniel and Paul, once again, my final guests of the session, thank you so much. All that's left to say is enjoy your afternoon and take care. Bye.
Thanks, Lucy.